The latest Fox polling shows Donald Trump dominating the GOP primaries. He leads Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis 56 to 22. Governor DeSantis joins me now. Governor, welcome to the program. It's really great to have you with us today. And forgive me, but I'd like to do some rapid fire questions so we can pack a lot in. Okay with that? You're down over 30 points to Trump. What's your strategy for catching up?
Well, first, I think it's pretty clear that the media does not want me to be the candidate. I think that they've tried to create narratives that somehow the race is over. This is going to be a state-by-state contest. We've worked really hard to build the type of organization in places like Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina that you need to actually be able to win these early contests, and we're going to continue doing that. We got a lot of work, but we've had very, very favorable response, and we're going to keep building off that momentum. At the end of the day, I think the fact that I'm the one that's targeted by the media, by the left, even by the president of Mexico, is because people know that I will beat Biden, and they know that I will actually deliver on all these issues and beat the Democrats at the border, beat them on things like ESG, beat them on things like crime, and they don't want to see that. And so we're going to keep telling the truth, and I think you're going to see good results.
Your rival, one of your rivals, I'm going to say, is Governor Newsom of California. He wants the Justice Department to investigate your migrant flights to California. What's your response to that?
Well, I think it's just absurd. I mean, California is a sanctuary state. They actually provide benefits for illegal aliens, and so they're serving really as a magnet for people to cross our border illegally. Don't get me wrong, Stuart. We will shut the border down when I'm president. We'll stop the invasion. We will build the border wall because I think you need that, and we'll hold the Mexican drug cartels accountable for what they've done to poison tens of thousands of Americans every year. But at the same time, if you do have people here illegally and a court says they can stay until there's some type of court date, I think that's a bad system. But if it is, the sanctuary jurisdiction should be the one to have to bear that burden. We're not a sanctuary state in Florida, and I think it's wrong that states that are doing it right would have to bear a burden. And so they've asked for this, they've invited it, and they should step up.
Do we need these migrants to work? I've been in Florida a lot recently, and I do see migrants rebuilding the southern part of the state after Ian, the hurricane. Should they work?
Well, you work legally, so we do have programs, as you know. You have things like H-2A visa programs, and we'll have to look at all of that because I think at the end of the day, what we've seen since COVID is the federal government decided to pay people not to work, and a lot of people have basically fallen out of the workforce. Now, some of them will do certain jobs, maybe more so than others, but at the end of the day, we want a situation in which able-bodied Americans, particularly able-bodied men, are working. And that's what it should be, and not have them get benefits without working. COVID kind of changed that, and I think we need to get more Americans back to work. Get them back in the workforce.
But I just wonder what we're going to do with the 5 million who've come into our country since Joe Biden was the president. I mean, they're not going to go back voluntarily, and it doesn't look like we're going to force them out with ICE. What are we going to do with them?
Well, no, you absolutely can enforce the law, Stuart. I think at the end of the day, we can debate what type of immigration policy we want, but whatever we have needs to be enforced. And I think you've had millions of people that have come. They've made bogus asylum claims, and they've basically manipulated the system to be here. I absolutely think that they should have to face typical law enforcement like everybody else would have to do. It's imposed a huge burden on our society. It's obviously helped provide cover for drug cartels to engage in really unspeakable conduct, whether it's human trafficking, whether it's bringing all the fentanyl in, to where now in every corner of this country, there are communities where mothers are losing kids to fentanyl overdose. So it's been a huge, huge problem to have Biden's policy. That ends on day one when I'm president.
I'm sure you saw this, but MSNBC came after your wife over the weekend, calling her America's Karen. I have to do this to you, Governor. Watch this again, please.
For many, she's the brighter side to Florida's angry governor. For others, she's become America's Karen.
America's Karen. David Jolly.
Well, I called her this, Serena Waterford wannabe. Needs to cut it out. We see you. There's all kinds of names for her. She needs to stop trying to measure the great drapes in the White House and think that she's some kind of Jackie O reincarnate.
Governor, I didn't know coming out of that soundbite whether you would be angry or smiling. It appears you really don't care. What is your response?
It shows my wife is an incredibly strong First Lady of Florida, a fantastic mother, and a great wife, and that threatens the left. So she and I kind of shrug it off because we know it just shows they view her as a threat, because the message that she was bringing in Iowa about the rights of parents and how we are not going to take this anymore with the left trying to indoctrinate our kids, they understand that that resonates, not just with Republican parents, with independent parents, and yes, with Democrat parents. And so I think that they're very worried about her effectiveness. And so all that's doing is confirming that she's over the target. She's a great advocate for families, a great advocate for children. And I'm thankful that she's my wife, and I'm really honored that she's willing to go out there and press the case. And so we wear criticism from MSNBC as a badge of honor.
Got it. Last one. The headlines are just full of stories about wildfires, smoke, extraordinary temperatures in the southwest and the southeast to some degree. Do you have a climate plan?
It's going to be to rip up Joe Biden's Green New Deal. I think at the end of the day, we need to embrace American domestic energy. This could be a huge source of national security, economic vitality. It can build our industrial base. In Florida, we've actually had a huge reduction in emissions, but it was done through innovation. It was done through market forces, not command and control. So we'll go about that in a much different direction than Joe Biden. I think ultimately Biden's policies and Bidenomics is really about making the average person poorer and reducing their standard of living. That is not the way you go about it.
If you were to pick one policy priority here and now that you're really going to run forcefully on, what is it?
I think it's secure this border, end this invasion, build this wall, and hold these Mexican drug cartels accountable. This has been a colossal failure. We'll have a plan on day one to declare a state of emergency. There will be a new sheriff in town, and we will mobilize all available assets to be able to reestablish the sovereignty of this country.
Start drilling again for domestic energy?
100%. I mean, it's a no-brainer. We have so much resource here. Why would we ever want to be at the whim of foreign countries, particularly hostile foreign governments? And so we want to do more oil. We want to do more gas. We need to permit more pipelines. This is great infrastructure for our country. It's great jobs, and it'll ultimately make things a lot better. We could potentially have a huge competitive advantage over a country like China because, you know, their oil resources are much scarcer than ours, and so we should embrace that, and we will do that. There'll be a whole new policy in place on day one, and the Biden Green New Deal is going to go out the window.
What would you do with the Department of Justice and the FBI on day one?
End the weaponization of government. You will have a new FBI director under my administration, and you're going to see the Justice Department cleaned out, and you're going to see parts of these agencies removed from Washington, D.C., and ferreted out in other parts of the country. I think one of the things that's happened is you've had such an accumulation of power in Washington. It's a very partisan town, a very political town, and I think it's irreparably damaged the culture of these agencies, and I think it's now become the point where there's a separate standard of justice, whether you're connected to those folks in the D.C. class, like Hunter Biden, because I think if he were a Republican, he'd have been in jail a long time ago. If you're not part of that class, man, if you jaywalk and they want to come after you, they will nail you to the wall, and that's just intolerable for a free society based on the rule of law.
Forgive me, Governor, for just one last one. Where does the economy stand in your list of priorities?
Oh, it's right up there, a day one issue. I think we have an opportunity to reverse Bidenomics. We need to get spending under control. We do need to do the energy initiatives that you and I discussed. We have to nuke things like ESG. We can't have a politicized economy. It just doesn't work. We need to rip up all the bureaucratic excess so we can unleash some of the creative forces in our economy. And we do need a better education system. Stop with the indoctrination, and let's focus on producing people, maybe college degree, but also with vocational skills that can be a part of a new era of advanced manufacturing as we look to rebuild our industrial base.
Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, thank you very much for taking time out of a very busy schedule. You do understand that, Governor, and thanks for being with us. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Yep.
See you again soon. Thank you, sir.